This is Eric, who survived World War II and grew up in Vienna. He's going to tell us a little bit about what that experience was like starting at age 9 when the war began. So, Eric, could you pronounce your full name, please?
Erich with a CH, Schwantner. That's the way it is properly pronounced.
Okay, Schwantner. Is that right?
Schwantner, yes.
Okay. And tell us your date of birth, please.
Well, I was born on the 12th of March in 1926 and grew up my first few years I spent with my parents in Scherding. My father was Signalmeister at the Federal Railway there, and then he got another position, the same kind of a work as a Signalmeister. That means he was in charge of the railway communication within a certain area, around 100 miles or so each way. And we moved to Wales, and I lived in Wales then, and went to grade school, and then they sent me to the gymnasium, and then I was sent to Vienna to an engineering school, and I had to live there in a dorm, and it took 4 years to get that, and I graduated there in 1944.
Okay, so let's begin at age 9 when the war broke out. Then we'll get back to your college years.
The war broke out in 1939. I was 13 at the time. And I remember vividly when the war broke out. There was no television at that time, of course. There was only radio. We listened to the radio, and we heard that it was a very successful campaign in Poland. And then actually nothing much happened in the war area. It was all quiet for almost another year.
You were living in Vienna at the time, correct?
I was living in Wales.
Is that far from Vienna? Where?
It's about 200 kilometers
Okay.
from Vienna, west of Vienna. And so in 1940, I entered the engineering school in Vienna, and I had to go there by train. My father brought me there, and I had to survive an examination, had to pass an exam there to be accepted, and then I had to live there, and was able to go home on holidays, and it was not a very pleasant time to live there, and I did the best I could at the time to survive that.
Yeah, and then when did you get put in the army or whatever you call it?
Well, I graduated in February 1944. It was before a few months early because of the war situation, and pending on military service was required.
So you did get drafted.
And so after graduation, I felt that I had accomplished something there, and went home to Wales, where my parents lived, and was there maybe a week or two, and received by mail a friendly invitation to show up and get the draft notice to enter the Reichsarbeitsdienst, it was called at that time. it was kind of a military organization, and actually the concept of Reichsarbeitsdienst was similar to what was in America at that time. It was the Conservation Corps, only that it was very militaristic, and so I had to show up.
There was no ideology. I can't say it. Right.
But the ideological training was required, or listening to things, but not in particularly strong, yes. And we were all young people. I was 18 years old, and I had friends who went with me to engineering school, also got drafted, and we made the best of it. We were transported, we had to show up in Vienna, and we were transported in civil clothes to what is today Poland, and I had to change into Unicode uniforms, which were basically army uniforms, only were brown instead of field gray, which was the prevailing color, and they issued a rifle and a spade, and you had to start to how to handle a rifle and how to march up and down with a rifle. And
Had you ever held a rifle prior to that time?
oh yes, definitely yes. And I had as a kid, I had an air rifle, and I was pretty good at that. And
So, when they, after you were drafted, how long was it before you were captured?
before I was what?
Captured by the Americans.
Well, that was about a year later. Yeah, it was actually almost exactly a year later. No, this stint at the Reichsarbeitsdienst, which was a pre-military training. The only thing we had also had to do, but we went to work only one day, digging a drainage ditch. Otherwise it was only marching and exercising and things like that, and learning the basics of the military craft.
And did they
Yes.
feed you decently during that time?
What?
Did they feed you during
Yeah,
that training?
The food was good, yeah. And we had breakfast and lunch and evening supper, yes. It wasn't overly. Actually, at that time I suffered a lot of sour stomach. It was something in the food that they served. It was mostly potatoes and spinach.
Mm.
There was very little meat involved.
Mhm.
Yes. And but in the dorm I used to live for 4 years. The food wasn't very good either. It was very poor, I would say. Yes.
Mhm.
And my mother and my father, they augmented it for me by sending me parcels and things like that. And also on weekends, my sister had an apartment in Vienna, a very nice one, I must say. And I was furloughed over weekends later on to go there and be with her, yes. I had to return to the dorm on Sunday evening. But those were other stories which I want to skip.
Okay, so tell us where were
Now,
you?
after graduation, I was drafted just about on my birthday
Oh,
at 18 years old to serve in the Reichsarbeitsdienst, but that was only 2 months. Then we were discharged from it, returned into civilian clothes, and were discharged to home. And I was maybe a week or two at home. Another later I arrived, summoning me to military draft, yes. And in order not to be fall prey to the SS at that time was actively recruiting people. And we and my friends, my school friends, and we are aware of this, and nobody wanted to go to join the SS, yes. And there was one trick we had to do. You had to sign to volunteer for the army. So for the army, and we did that. And with this piece of paper, the SS could not attack or influence you to join them. Yes. So, but it was not anything special that we had to. We had to. We were drafted like everybody else. Yes. Just had a piece of paper to show to the SS that we were not joining them. We are not required to join them, yes. So, joining the army, I had to join the army in Vienna because I was registered there. So I went to Vienna, and I don't remember the exact thing, but we had to show up at the barracks. Barracks were built before at the Kaiser's time already, and were army properties, yes. And the uniforms they issued us was kind of a fatigue type thing. The fabric itself, it was whitish. It got dirty, of course, and the texture of the material was similar to the texture of blue jean, only it was white, yes. And we had to wear stiefel, which were boots, yes, like the German military had boots, and a cap and things like that. And we issued a rifle again, and had to learn to go through the basics thing, learn to how to salute properly, and exercise. Exercise it was called, the drill of lying down and crawling through the mud and all that, and run around with the belt and the ammunition things there. It was hard work, and it was hard, tough, yes.